Good morning, YouTube. How are you all doing this morning, afternoon, or evening? I hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone's doing well. All right. Okay, so I'm going to just hang out for just a second because I started just a little bit earlier than I was intending. I actually meant to start at 7, but it ended up I wasn't quite going to make it. So, anyways, YouTube lets me. I think I can actually start at any time, but like as far as the schedule, they make it easy on the 15-minute. So, anyways, here we are. All right, if you're new, I'll just get this all out of the way. If you're new, welcome to the Null News. Here we're going to just cover some of the news in the cloud around Kubernetes, containers. Actually, we spend quite a bit with cloud news as I try to cover all the clouds. I also cover any large Kubernetes news, and yeah, that's what we're doing. I start with security. We start with security, just talk about the large security trends that have happened over the last week. We move into the clouds, and then we go into some engineering blogs and some things that I found interesting in the industry. And then we end up in a little bit of open source projects. Sometimes it's projects that the community has recommended. Sometimes in the Discord, if you've not joined, you should. And yeah. I have a lizard. It's actually a blue-tailed skink, I believe it's called blue-tailed skink. Joining me in the studio today. So I say studio. It makes it sound fancy. Not basement. Basement doesn't sound fancy. Studio sounds fancy. But yes, I tried to catch him earlier today, and I failed. So I will have to do that afterwards. All right, let's get into the news. We'll start with something I really liked. This is from GitHub. So if you remember right, I think 2 weeks ago, or was it last week? Might have been last week. If not last week, the week before, we talked about there was a attack on GitHub that stole OAuth tokens for 2 third-party integrations for Heroku and Travis CI. So if you don't remember those, go back and watch that video. Actually, that's a very long live stream. I wouldn't do that. But anyways, that did happen on GitHub. And GitHub released a blog post on basically just how it happened and whatnot. It's your standard your standard retrospective on it. Good morning, Russell. But I found this kind of interesting because in this retrospective on the OAuth attacks, they actually released that they found, while digging through this, some other vulnerabilities that they've now fixed. And I thought this was really good that they made sure to disclose those. They didn't just sweep them under the rug. So you can read the whole article, but basically, yeah, this is the part with the Heroku and Travis CI. Again, they have a blog on that. But as they were doing their retrospective, they found out that basically on their internal system, internal logging, that they were storing people's keys in plain text in logs for NPM. So, yep, that's kind of horrifying. Now, it was plain text credentials stored in internal logs. So it was only accessible to GitHub employees, but that's still not good. That's still not good. But it wasn't like it was exposed publicly. It wasn't exposed publicly, so that's better, but not good. But yeah, I really appreciate that GitHub did this. They were very upfront with it and stated that they found it in basically the retrospective and breakdown of the Heroku and Travis CI. So it's really cool when you have an incident, and digging into it, it lets you discover other things that aren't perfect in your system. So super cool. All right, this is in the security. I didn't know exactly where to put it. FTC fines Twitter $150 million for using 2FA info for targeting advertising. I'm really glad that the Federal Trade Commission did this. This is actually also horrifying that Twitter would do something like that. So yeah, so basically they were using your login to target ads for you. So all that data that you signed over for logging in was being used for advertising, not in alignment with what they were saying that they were using it for. All right. Moving on, VMware authentication bypass vulnerability, pretty bad. Pretty bad CVE. It has been patched, so if you haven't patch. What I liked about this though was it gave a pretty good breakdown on like actually how to do it. This is one of those more technical codey ones, and it was cool to see, and it was fairly good to read. So if you're into that, if you're into those types of things, I'll leave this one a link in the description. After this, I found it interesting to read and try to understand exactly what was going on and how they did it. So this last one, yeah, popular Python libraries CTX uploading secrets to Heroku. This is actually a supply chain attack. We've talked quite a bit about it. It wasn't just CTX. There was another one. It was in PyPy, the CTX. There was also a PHP, PHPass. Also had a supply chain attack, which was uploading stuff to Heroku. So again, this is why supply chain is so important. It's a hard problem. There's actually an article later on that we're going to talk about how open source is a security threat. I categorically disagree with the person, but it's interesting. I would say that I categorically disagree because we've seen times where open source isn't part of the equation that gets the supply chain hack. Other people, even closed source things, can have their supply chains hacked as well. Closed source doesn't mean that they're not available. It just means that, or that they don't have their systems hosted online where they can access them and where they're vulnerable. They do, so they can still have supply chain hacks. So Anyways, that's it pretty much for security. There wasn't much else that I saw this week. Did you guys see anything? Let me know. But yeah. Yeah, if you're using CTX in the last 2 weeks or PHPass, you should probably check that as far as I have seen right now, the vulnerable ones have been taken down, so you should just update or uninstall an update. I don't know if you have a vulnerable one and they took that down, so there's only older versions. I don't know exactly how PyPy works in that regard. I don't know if you can just update. You might have to delete it and update, but I would. That's what I would do moving forward. All right, so I have a special section right here between security and cloud. When I have something to talk about with Web3, I'm putting it right here. And I have 2 articles on Web3. I've been doing a lot of investigations in Web3. I have 2 videos on Web3 that are taking a ton of research that I'm going to be doing for you all. But any of you that join me for this time right here are going to get insights into what I'm seeing, what I've been researching. This one is kind of just an opinion piece that I found that I think the second article actually deals with really, really, really well. Like why this opinion is wrong. But It's that Web3 has a user experience problem. Welcome to Web3, a world filled with unicorns, long acronyms, market-moving memes, and slang that changes quicker than a well-executed rug pull. You have an NFT to sell me? Thank you. So basically, this person's whole thing is saying that it's hard to understand. This is its only problem, is that it's hard to understand and hard to sell. And I would say that, and that there's a user experience gap. And I think that they're fundamentally wrong. But I found this in my musings. I believe this is one of the people behind Signal, who basically went on an adventure with crypto. And this has been my experience with crypto. I am a fairly large crypto nerd that I can't talk about. But because I think that the server-to-server untrusted is really cool. But this guy has a lot of really good points. People don't want to run their own servers and never will. The majority don't. Even people that are fans of crypto that have been putting a lot of their life savings, and I read actually several articles about the one coin market, or the one coin crashing that wiped out tons of people's savings. Those people weren't actually mining it or running their own servers. They were just putting their hard-earned money into the ether, literally just into the ether, burning it. A protocol moves much more slowly than a platform. This was an interesting take that I hadn't really thought about here, or that I hadn't really thought about crypto. After 30 years, email is still unencrypted, while WhatsApp went from unencrypted to full E2E in a year. So what his point here is, protocols by design are meant to move slowly. We've seen this with Ethereum trying to move from proof of work to proof of stake. And it's been, what, 8 years? I think it's been 8 years. We'll verify later on, but I think it's been 8 years that they've been trying to do this. And it's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be difficult. And I think this is an important understanding of that. This guy then did a lot, and I recommend you actually read this. It was super interesting. I love this part, making an NFT. This guy actually made an OpenSea account and made this. Basically, what he found was that if you owned the server or could hijack the server, basically you could make the NFT whatever you wanted it to be, because it was just a URL. And so he made the NFT basically change what it looked like based off of where your IP or where you were accessing it. So on OpenSeas or Rarible, it looked like this, but in your wallet, it looked like the poop emoji. And this is really cool, but it actually exposed another problem with blockchains in general and what people say. So when you're talking about blockchains and you're talking about this trust, it's actually trust between servers, not between clients, which I think is a fantastic point that they pull out. And basically, OpenSeas said that what he did here was a breach of their terms. Although I also read through their terms, and he said he read through their terms. I couldn't find anything. He couldn't find anything. Nothing in their terms specifically said that you couldn't make an emoji about like this. And he was very explicit in his NFT that this was what his NFT did. It looked different where you were accessing it. So he wasn't even lying on his NFT. Anyways, the really cool thing was that MetaMask, what he used to own his things, basically uses OpenSeas. So when OpenSeas took down his NFT, it actually removed it from his wallet. Because while we like to harp that it's a distributed system, all of these things, MetaMask for one, uses OpenSeas to know what your NFTs are and make its calls. Anyways, you should read this article if you're interested in blockchain and whatnot, because I think he did a really good job. I hope that my video at some point does half of what this guy's article has done, because I think he did a really, really, really good job of showing some of the really painful parts in like the underbelly of this crypto. And I think it's easy for a lot of us to get caught up because it's kind of like this new thing. And sometimes you've worked on microservices for the last 5 years of your life and you're wanting to see something new. You don't want to write just another microservice. That's only has so much fun to it. But yeah. Oh, cool. You should drop a link to the video. We're all open to learning here. It's super cool. YouTube's algorithm, not algorithms, but YouTube's analytics, live analytics that it gives me are staggeringly poor. It currently says that I have 0 users, except that I have 3 people talking in chat. So I think that it works for larger audience because it gives like a rough number, like, oh, you have 100 people. Is it 120? Is it 90? Maybe, who cares? But at the lower end, it's at least a little heartbreaking sometimes. Sometimes you could just lie, and that would make me feel better, YouTube. Although I think that you're lying just in the opposite direction. All right, so let's get into our cloud news. Like I said, I have videos that I want to make on those things, and I'm doing a lot of research on blockchains because I want to help people understand it better. We've actually had some really good chats in Discord about. Actually, and one of those chats was in Raw Code's Discord. It was like the null channel in Raw Code's Discuss. So it was the combination of the overlap, but it was really good conversations, and we've had good conversations around what blockchains are and what kind of people are missing about it. So hopefully I can get the time to do those and give them the research they need. All right. What's new with GCP? Now, as we know, GCP gives the absolute worst as far as what's new. This is all that they give. But the artifact registry, if you're using it, seem to actually get quite a few updates. I'm not using it, but it went GA. It supports some new areas. It also supports now apt and yum repositories. So it really has expanded in not only capabilities, but in regions as far as that goes. There was changes to streams for cloud spanners. I don't know exactly. I don't know a ton in that, so I don't use this. So if you do, I would definitely check that out. Yeah, that was kind of the big things that I saw. I didn't see too much outside of this, although I have this article. It's behind a paywall from Business Insider. I don't know why I can read these on my phone but not on my computer. But this is something I wanted to bring up. Every single year, GCP grows. And it continues to grow with the other big clouds. But it's interesting because it seems like GCP as a whole is under a lot of turmoil. You always see a lot of exec turnover. Considering they seem to be doing well and a lot of people really like their service, but there seems to be a lot of exec turnover, a lot of turnover in non-execs. It almost feels like it's struggling, but I can't find like a very specific concrete place where it's struggling. Like I can't point to an article that says it's in trouble. I can't do any of that. Everything that I see says it's doing really well, but I have this inkling in the back of my mind that it's actually struggling. Like them laying off their support staff, that screams we're struggling. All of those things add up to this cohesive feeling of it's not doing well, but everything that I can find that says how GCP is doing seems to say that it's doing fantastically. So I don't really know. Anyways, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. If you have any insights or whatnot. Yeah. Let's move on to AWS. AWS had some interesting... Nope, it didn't have anything interesting. All we had here was some new instance types, pretty much new instance types, pretty much new instance types, pretty much a new instance type. So if you're interested in new instance types, they had some... These are interesting instance types. So these are their P4DE GPU instances for ML and HPC. This is their largest GPU-based instance. So yeah, I mean, if that's you, these are powered by 8 NVIDIA A100 GPUs with 80 gigabytes of high-performance GPU memory. These are pretty powerful. I hate to... I should have actually looked up their pricing. I just want to know. I'll have to look it up, but I can't imagine these are very cheap. I'm guessing like $10 an hour. Anyways, so if you have specific workloads, these could be really, really interesting. But again, other than that, they're just new instance types. So. AI-driven business, Moneyball, fall outside the algorithm and you'll get auto-fired. How are you doing, Rubber Cable? All right. So yeah, that was pretty much all I saw for AWS. Did you guys see anything else for AWS that you found interesting? I didn't find a whole lot else there. Again, it's interesting. These P4DE GPU instances can actually... AWS, and they're usually generally accurate, says that they're about 20% lower cost than the P4D instances. So yeah, if you're doing heavy ML on AWS, this could really be that helpful. I know of some. I know of some. That's probably as much as I am comfortable saying. I do know of some people that run on GCP, and it seems to be growing their revenue share each year. I mean, so as far as GCP goes, it's still losing money, but that's because they keep expanding like super fast. They have... They keep growing their revenue. Just they grow as much or more than the other clouds. I think every time that I've seen it, they've grown a lot each time. They're like double the size they were last year, and that's the weird thing. I do know some people that use it in production. Again, I'm not necessarily at liberty to say anything more than that, or not comfortable on the whim saying more than that. But yeah, I don't know. Cool, Pavel. Awesome. This is awesome. Awesome having you guys in chat. Absolutely love it. I love it that chat's working this time. Last stream it wasn't working, which was stupid. All right, so let's jump into Azure. Azure had a couple interesting things. Yeah, Azure had a couple interesting things. Azure had a couple things that are also Microsoft. I don't separate Azure and Microsoft because sometimes it's very difficult to separate them when it's like... You'll see. There's a couple things that are like, is that a Windows thing? It's probably a Windows or Microsoft thing, but it's interesting for cloud news. This first one was kind of one I didn't expect. and spending more time looking at how just to be flexible. Okay, do I need to start doing Chinese clouds here? I can. I don't know. I don't know them very well, and I don't know the US ones nearly well enough. But all right, so public preview Nginx for Azure. This one, there's also a blog article here that I think is a little bit better than the Microsoft. Their reporting is really good, but it's kind of like my reporting. It just kind of vomits it up onto here as a basic thing. This was actually gave a pretty good architecture for F5 Nginx for Azure. Again, they say F5 Nginx because it's in F5 bought Nginx. So anyways, this is basically Nginx as a service. Now, it's interesting. I don't understand this. Nginx is like super simple to run as your own load balancer if you want. I don't understand, and Azure has their own load balancers as a service as well. So I'm not actually entirely sure. This is why I'm saying I didn't expect this one. Not that having an easy button for Nginx in a cloud isn't a good thing, but I also don't quite understand. Like I'm sure that they did quite a bit of designing to make this happen. I've brought things as a service. I understand like this is not an easy amount of work, and I'm just wondering what value it actually brings. I don't know. Let me know if you guys think of where I'm where I'm failing to see how awesome this is. All right. Dynatrace for Azure is a native integrated SaaS solution to provide deep cloud observability. This is pretty good. Yeah, this is pretty good if you're wanting to integrate this into your Azure. General availability, Ledger in Azure SQL. I talked about Ledger when it went a while back, but I want to say it was last year sometime. Anyways, this Ledger gives you cryptographic proof that your database has not been tampered with. This is actually pretty important, especially when you're talking about there's different databases. Obviously, there's ones that this is more important for and whatnot. So this is actually pretty cool, and I think it going generally available is pretty awesome. So definitely, if you're using Azure SQL database, using Ledger is something you might want to look into. I don't know the exact cost of it. Like how much it actually costs you, but having the ability to do this, to enable cryptographic proof that a database has not been tampered with, is pretty fantastic. General availability, Azure Cognitive Services for cognitive. My gosh, Azure Cognitive Services for language. I obviously need this service to actually make this podcast in the morning. So yeah, there's definitely one second. I got to recover from this. Just speaking more is probably not the way to recover. All right, so it's generally available. If you need a ML language service like I do for just general speech, you should definitely check this out. Moving on, we have the Azure SQL Database Local Development Experience. This is kind of a blog, but it's about the clouds. One of my problems with the cloud sometimes is when you're too heavily vested into the cloud for your auth, for your databases, for your entire microservices are basically cloud services, except for your like two little microservices that actually provide what you want. It becomes really hard to test locally. I see a lot of times people will have like a dev environment that they basically point all of their local stuff to those cloud resources. And that has its own problems for debugging and things like that, and just general developer experience. So having a good plan for local debugging is important, and it's not even necessarily easy though. So that's where this comes in, and I think that you should check it out if you're on Azure. all of the clouds do this a little bit differently. I actually have really liked some of the stuff that I think Microsoft puts the most work into this. GCP, I think, is the worst on this. I think. And AWS sits somewhere in the middle. Azure, I think, generally does the most work at trying to make local debugging and deployment and iterations quick and easy. So they have this inner loop and outer loop concept here with your GitHub repo and Azure. We'll get to that, Russell. I'll jump back to that, and we can actually look into it. But this is all about local development experience, and you should read it if you're on Azure. If you're not on Azure, you don't care at all. So let's go back to this. Russell brought up a really good point. What was the SQL ledger news is that to ensure it's not altered at rest, as how would it know the difference between sanitized inputs and attacks through normal transactions? I think that's a really good point. To my knowledge, we'll click on this, learn more. Ledger doesn't, if they make a request through normal things like your API or whatnot, I do not believe that Ledger is going to actually save you from that. I don't think that that's what it's designed to do. I believe it's at rest. Right. So if they make a valid transaction, even if it's an illegitimate transaction, but it comes through your system, it will be cryptographically signed and in it. So now, if your system has a bug that lets people make these bastardized requests, then I don't think Ledger is going to protect you. But if somebody comes in a side channel and hits your database, it is going to allow you to do that. That's my understanding. Now, I could be wrong. I haven't dug well into this. Let's click on this overview here. Streamlining audits. Audits is what I was thinking. Like your audit pipeline is actually really, really cool. Let's see. Oh, wait, I can make this bigger. I can make this bigger. I'll have to get back to you. We can sit here and read this together. My understanding that it was the at rest part and side channels. But I couldn't. It's a fantastic question, though. That's fantastic. So let me report back to you guys next week, or maybe I'll do it in Discord. Not necessarily next week. Discord at the very worst. Yeah. All right. Let's see. There are a few other things. This was kind of not Azure, more Microsoft, but you know what? Let's see. Which ones did I want? There was a couple things. Don't care about the store. Oh, this. Volterra. This looks like a Mac Mini. And I really wanted a Mac Mini that I could run Linux on. If I can get that, that's what my entire home data center is going to be run off of. Power efficient and powerful for the power that you use. Now, obviously, this is all about Windows on it, but I don't care about that. I really don't. I don't care. Maybe one of them would be a Windows node so we could run Windows containers because that would be fun, but that's not what I care about. What I care about is I want to run Kubernetes on bare metal Kubernetes on them, so I need to run Linux on them. That's headless Linux. That's what I want to do. So I'm looking forward to this. Okay, and then Microsoft DevBox. Again, this is Microsoft, but it's kind of their cloud. Russell, if you read the docs on that and you find something, throw it in Discord. Let's chat about it. I'm going to read on it too because you've piqued my interest on how it exactly does it. I don't run in Azure. I think I've been clear on that. It's just something that I found very cool for things like compliance and things like that. Your audit trail. All right. Okay. So Microsoft DevBox is something like, I think it's Microsoft, but I think that it's Azure. It's at least powered by Azure. I don't know. This is cool. This is basically a machine, a Windows machine in the cloud, which basically you can build a developer experience and allow your developers to open up that machine in the browser. I think that this could be really cool eventually. I think it's very expensive right now, but I think it could be really cool because you always have this problem of having developers set up their machines and whatnot, and letting them just spin up a machine in the cloud really quickly would be really powerful. Yeah, as far as the Volterra goes, I'm really, really, really interested in it. This is kind of interesting. They have this where it kind of looks like they're splitting it up between two things, but they're both working together. I don't really know how they're going to work. My plan is to get my hands on them as soon as I can, and see if I can't load Linux on them. Like, I will buy them, I will spend my money on them, find I can't load Linux on them, and I will give you the exact same review of my Mac Mini was that, dang, I wish I could load Linux on this, and I'll be angry. But yeah, that's the life I live. And then I'll have this Windows machine laying around that I can't load Linux on, and I'll have to just run Windows containers on it, and I guess that will be fine enough. And the last bit of Azure news that we have here is that Azure was selected by Meta to boost AI innovation. So yeah, cool. That's it. That's it for our cloud news. Oh, I guess I forgot this. Hugging Face collaborates with Microsoft to launch Hugging Face endpoints. I don't know what Hugging Face is. I think it's a machine learning thing. What are you talking about, Rubber Cable? What are you talking about? Wait, is this like Azure Citrix MetaFrame with a Linux client? Are you talking about Project Volterra or DevBox? I yeah, Russell, I'm right there with you. Like, I'm really excited if I can like make a data center. So one of the things that I've been wanting to do, that I would really like to do, is I want to make a null cloud. I want to make it so that subscribers and whatnot can log into the cloud and have a place to play around with some bare metal. That I think is a super important to have as a resource for people to learn. And yeah, I think that this could be really cool because I don't want to spend an arm and a leg to provide that. Yeah, so I'm really interested in, especially if they're priced well, like cheap is what I mean by priced well. Hopefully they're cheap. Yeah, or else my wife won't approve me buying them. All right. Let's see. The friendlier than Facehugger. That Mac Mini might be a Linux client. So far, I haven't been able to run Linux on the Mac Mini well. So I'm not sure. All right. So something I think, I don't know if I'm excited about or not. This is in like the cloud native-ish news. I really like Tilt. I haven't made a video on it. I probably should have made a video on it. I really like Tilt. If you're developing microservices for Kubernetes, I really like Tilt. I'm worried about what this means for Tilt. They basically said they don't know what it means for Tilt. That being said, for the next couple months, we'll be swapping notes with the Docker team about what we both learned and what we both tried. We don't know where this will take us. Maybe you'll see Tilt and Kubernetes features in Docker Compose, or maybe you'll see Docker Desktop features in Tilt. I don't know. Now, they did say that they plan on keeping it Apache 2 and open source, so that's really, really good, because hopefully no matter what they do to it, the community can rectify it, because I really like Tilt. I think that it really solves a problem and does it pretty elegantly. So this is something I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be looking into and keeping an eye on, because I really like Tilt. We use it. I use it. I think that, for the really big Kubernetes people, it's probably not important. They know how to load their own local images and whatnot, and they write their own bash script to do it. But for the majority of people that don't know Kubernetes that well and just want to write a microservice and test it locally, I think Tilt is a really, really strong tool to use. So I like Tilt, and hopefully this is a good thing for Tilt, not a bad thing. I've seen it go both ways. But yeah. On top of that, Broadcom is to acquire VMware. Why is this in cloud native? Well, VMware actually releases a VMware Tanzu, which is a Kubernetes provider, and they actually have like an open source version of that as well. So I figured it was appropriate. They're paying $61 billion in cash. I wish I had $61 billion in cash. That's mind-blogging. Gosh dang it, I can't speak in the morning. Mind-blowing. But yeah, so I bet Dell is sad that they spun them off. Didn't just wait to sell them. GitLab is releasing its next 15.1, so it's released its roadmap with basically what's managed, their plan, their verify. So if you're on GitLab and don't know much about GitLab, so I'm not going to go into details. Drug deal. Yes, possibly. Anyways, so that's out there though. I thought this was a really good read. There's so much in the open source world of a lot of infighting, probably. And I actually think that it's bad for the community as a whole. But this is like an opinion piece on why the FSF does not accept Debian as a free distribution, because it doesn't. But Debian is like one of the few really free. You think of your Red Hats, they're not really free. Debian is like one of those ones that isn't even really backed by a corporation. Whereas, Ubuntu, which is a really good one, sure, they made their blunders. Ubuntu is not perfect or canonical, but I think Ubuntu is way better than Red Hat on most of the cases. Debian is like really actually out there and free, and like their whole thing is to be free. And why does the FSF have an issue with it? And this just, again, is an opinion piece on why it might not be there. So if you're interested in that, you should go ahead and read it. All right, using telepresence to intercept microservice on a Kubernetes cluster. Oh yeah? I mean, to pay that much for VMware, to pay $61 billion, they would need to have aggressive EBTAs. EBITDAs, I don't know how to pronounce the stupid acronym. That's a lot. You know, hopefully the null channel breaks about $1 billion in value next year. That's my goal. $1 billion in value. $1 in value would be good. Yeah. I don't know. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. All right, let's talk about just some general news. Yeah. Thanks, Russell. Telepresence is a pretty awesome tool. I never knew about it until I read this blog. I read random blogs just so that I can bring them to you guys. This looks pretty cool. Especially if you're working with Kubernetes and trying to figure out this debugging thing. This looks really cool. I recommend everybody read this. I'm posting fewer links, but I'm trying to target them better. Just saves me time in doing a bunch of stuff. And yeah, so this will be one of the links. I think it's really cool. I've never actually used it before. I just started playing around with it a little bit over the weekend in some of my spare time. Yeah, so far it looks cool. This blog write-up is also really cool. Really well done. So definitely go ahead and check that out. I'm sad about this. I'm actually really sad about this. I think GitHub is destroying our next generation of coders. And this is something like, okay, Copilot, GitHub AI powered coding tool will be free for students. I think this is bad. I really do. And the reason is we have a bunch of software engineers that don't understand their leaky abstractions. Don't understand how the OS abstracts hardware. Don't understand how Kubernetes abstracts orchestration. And they don't understand how TCP abstracts the network. And they don't understand all of these things and how they rear their ugly heads and whatnot. You know what? Some of the best advice I had when I started learning to program was to go and program some in assembly. Am I good at programming in assembly? Absolutely not. Did I learn how a processor actually thinks when it writes? Yeah, I did. I also did some in networking. Am I really great at networking? No, but I understand it a lot better than some. All of these things made me a really great high-level programmer. Even if you're like, well, I'm just going to program in crappy Python or Java, and I don't care about that low level. The problem is, if you don't understand that low level, if you don't understand where you're coming from, then it's impossible for you to make good abstractions at your level as well. And so if you give AI, Copilot to students, all of a sudden they're not going to know how to program it correctly in the first place. I see Copilot as a huge productivity tool. Absolutely fantastic. It has its rough spots, but it's a really fantastic autocomplete. It's like one of the best autocompletes out there. But the problem is, if your students are using this, then they're not learning. Some part of learning is the pain incurred in the learning. Like, pain is good. Having consequences is good. We shouldn't take consequences away, because consequences are how we learn that things we did weren't good choices. This is how I learned that riding my bike or skateboard without knee pads isn't a good idea. I don't skateboard. That was just a thing off the top of my head, because I skinned my knees up. Copilot for students, I think, is a bad idea. I think that it sounds really good as a marketing thing for Microsoft and for GitHub. They'll be like, oh yeah, we're giving free stuff. I think students should have it painfully. I think that they should learn how it sucks so that they know why they're doing the things that they're doing. Education sees coders as product. Microsoft sees code as the product. yeah, I guess I just think differently. This is why, like, a lot of my educational stuff goes into the nitty gritty, and this is probably why I don't get so many subscribers. Um, because I think it's important to understand those things. Even if it's abstracted out for you, at some point, that abstraction is going to be leaky, and you're going to have to deal with it. And if you know nothing about it, then good luck. Good luck. So, anyways, sorry. That was my stop giving free stuff to students. That's not my case. Like, I want students to be able to learn. And don't get me wrong, my 9 and 10-year-old are learning Python because I am trying to keep it easy and trying to make them not think about extra things. Like, while I would love for them to learn Rust, Rust is just a little bit more painful, and I wanted them to have quick and easy wins. Also, the libraries out there for Python are fantastic, allowing them to do a little bit more and empowering them quickly. So I understand that. And I understand the desire to try to have them. But if you're talking about college students, I think that these people should be learning to write assembly and learning where it sucks. And yeah, I don't know. That's just my take on that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm an old fart. Yeah. All right. Who had money on Samsung and Red Hat joining forces on next-gen memory software? I did. Red Hat is owned by IBM. This is what IBM has done over the years. This is not surprising. You just think because it's anyways, this is dumb. Moving on. How we improved DNS record build speed by more than 4,000 times. Another fantastic article by Cloudflare. You should go read it. You'll learn something. Cloudflare's approach to handling BMC vulnerabilities. You should check this out. The baseboard management control is a small specialized processor used for remote monitoring and management of a host system. These are really cool and are really popular in servers. If you haven't had servers, BMCs are big in servers. Like, you can manage the server, the OS that's installed on it, how their RAIDs are configured. There is so much that you can configure with them. But as anything, there's things. So if you are running a data center or are close to it or just interested, you should read this. Cloudflare did a really good write-up on how they mitigate those securities. And okay, so going back to this, I'm fine with lowering the bar to entry. That's not the problem. But if you're wanting to get really good engineers, I don't think is the way. My children actually use Copilot, and it's helped them not need me as much, which is nice. But then I also want them to do it themselves. Actually, they learned Python without Copilot first, 100%. And now they use it on their own. When they're trying to do something and they're just trying to figure it out, they'll use Copilot. But they learn to do it themselves first. And I think that I will teach them assembly before they go to college. Like, that's on their docket for school lessons, that's what they'll have to learn. Because I want them to see how a processor actually thinks and actually does things. Because I've actually found that useful to actually think about it when you're unwinding a stack tray. I guess this was more when I was doing some lower level stuff, not necessarily at a microservice level, but I have found it helpful. So yeah, anyways. All right, this is something that I know that Russell and I have talked about. We've talked about how cool would it be if Copilot would actually let you write some code and then convert it to another language. Let's say you know Python really well, but you're trying to learn Rust. And you're like, how would this code look in Rust? Well, that's what this person, Alexander, said. Hey, you can write Python and it will convert it into C++. Now, I don't know that it does a really, really good job. I didn't validate it, but they use OpenAI's Codex API for the conversion. So this is actually happening. This is kind of cool. I actually think this could be a huge tool for learning a new language when you're just trying to learn the syntax and how to do the things, and you want to see it optimized for that language. So yeah, Russell, I know that you and I have talked about this and how this would be cool. It seems like OpenAI's Codex API will allow you to do that conversion. This is kind of cool. I kind of want to do like a Rust learning bot that lets you learn Rust by writing Go. I think that would be kind of cool. Yeah. Oh, 1 second. I forgot to share my screen. So yeah. Yeah, I know people want the low code and whatnot. This is the thing. When you go to low code and bringing those Lego bricks in, what you get is you lose features and you lose extendability and you really hard sell yourselves into AWS or whatever ecosystem it is. That's what you do. So it has its own downfalls. The other thing is, if you're there's just things that you cannot do. If you wanted to program your own database, you cannot take AWS's low code and build a database out of it. And even if you could, it wouldn't be a highly performant one. So there's just a bunch of things that it limits you in doing. You couldn't write the next Kubernetes engine in a low code thing. It just wouldn't be possible. Or a no code thing. Like it just it doesn't work. And I've done enough with Unreal Engine and their graph code, their visual code, their building Lego blocks. And guess what? Even my children think that the C++ is sometimes easier to read than the Lego blocks that are all wired together in a huge thing that is hard to read and understand the flow of. In small quantities, it works really well. In a big app, it's almost impossible. Is Copilot built on I don't remember which one it's built on. I don't remember which one it's built on. Let me look. I think so. Yeah. Yeah. You're right, Russell. So Copilot should be able to translate your code because the base engine behind it, OpenAI, is able to do it. So Copilot, this is a feature request that we need to do. This is a feature request. Copilot should be able to do this. And then I'm good with students getting it for free because they can learn a new language with it. There we go. Now we have come up with a reason why students should get it for free, and it's because they can learn new languages with it by having it translate it for you. Copilot isn't really designed for translating a language. It's made to be awesome autocomplete, but you should be able to highlight, right-click, get a Copilot thing, and say translate to a different language. 100%. Because yeah, this guy, this Codex Python 2 CPP, this was a cool experiment with Codex. This guy's awesome. Pretty cool. All right, let's move on. Tech has been getting a little bit of a meltdown. We have Bolt employees vent frustrations after 11 billion tech startup axes jobs. We also see that from Laceworks. Lacework lays off 20% of staff. Let's talk about how not to do layoffs. Let's talk about how not to do. Lacework's a perfect one. So is Bolt. Both of these companies raised a crap ton of money and then laid off a lot of people. This is not okay. Now, if they gave them all a good severance, but that's not my entire understanding, especially with the Bolt. I don't know about Laceworks. This is not okay. And you know what? Honestly, restructuring doesn't mean you have to lay off people. I've seen these restructures where they continue to hire but lay off people. You fire people if they're being bad workers and not doing their job. I guess I don't care. But that's not what a layoff is. They just raised $1.3 billion in November. Did you burn through $1.3 billion? Was your hiring so radically wrong that you had to lay off 20% after raising that much? I don't know. I do think that tech is going to see a little bit, at least a slowdown, as you're going to see these bubble through. I'm not, again, I haven't talked a whole lot on it because I don't know the full extent. I'm not an economist. Hopefully, you know, we pull through this without too much of a downturn. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce them. Seems pretty staggering. It seems suspect to me. Look at the dates on all these. 23rd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 25th. Did they coordinate this? Did they like get together in their private jets and coordinate these layoffs? Like, for a company that has a ton of money in the bank, I cannot believe that in 6 months you burned through $1.3 billion with only 1,000 staff. Like, I cannot believe that. Because Lacework also has to be making money. I know that they're making money. I cannot believe that. Netflix isn't as big of a deal. I don't think Netflix actually laid off any of their software engineers. That's another thing that you have to look from when you're talking about the technical staff here, is when I was looking at Netflix, I didn't actually see them laying off engineers. They could have laid off some engineers, but I didn't see that as much. Lacework was nondescript as well. Is it salespeople? What is it? We don't really know at this point, or at least I didn't find out. So yeah. Anyways, the best thing that you can do is invest in yourself. Make sure that your skills are top notch. And hopefully on this channel, I'm here to help you with that. That's my goal. My goal is to help you with that. And hopefully I can continue helping you guys with that. This was the opinion piece that I told you guys I disagreed with. Open source is becoming a national security risk. I disagree. Super disagree. People's not understanding their supply chains is a national security risk. People not understanding how to secure what it means and how their application can be attacked is a security risk. Absolutely. It's not open source. The people could actually go and pull that open source code and build it themselves. They just get it from NPM. Now, you can go with a person like Red Hat or SUSE. Those people build all of those and provide a secure end-to-end pipeline that you can use. I actually think a company like Red Hat or SUSE without the OS, without the confusion of the OS, that's focused on securing the pipeline that says, hey, look, we'll give you a secured pipeline that's cryptographically secured, that we build the thing and we promise you that it's built from the branch and that we've reviewed the people making PRs. I think that's actually a really cool company idea. It's not like cool as in like it's a cool job. It's not really a cool job. You're not solving an interesting problem. You're just providing a service that people need because they have a hard time actually securing their own pipelines. All right, in other news, Ansible Automation Platform 2.2 is out. I don't use Ansible, so go for it. I'm just letting you guys know that it's out there. If you do use Ansible, it's out there. Cool blog article on pre-commit hooks DevOps engineers should know to control Kubernetes. Pre-commit hooks are actually really cool. And so if you don't know what they are, I'm going to make a video on them just because I saw this and I was like, you know what? I haven't done a pre-commit hook video. So I'm going to make a fun one. I have to think of a fun idea, but as soon as I do, I'm going to make that video because people should be using pre-commit hooks. For sure. Yeah, rubber cable, that's something that I've noticed. Not a lot of teams use an Artifactory repo to cache their, and they should be. They absolutely should be. And I almost feel like providing this as a service is actually a really cool idea. And again, it's not a new idea. Red Hat, SUSE, they all do that. That's what their distribution, when you pay for it, gives you. You know, you can go download Ubuntu or OpenSUSE Leap, but when you pay for SLES, when you pay for Red Hat, that's what you're getting. You're getting those repos, those apt yum whatever repos. That's you're also getting the OS, but I think the OS muddies it. You want it without the OS. You want to run whatever OS you want and use the packages that you want. You want the container registry. You want not the container registry. You actually want also the apt images and whatnot, and you want to secure it. I actually really think that this is I've gone back and forth with, it's not a sexy idea. You don't go out there and get your billions of dollars because you have this, but I think it's something that the industry really, really needs. And you know what? It would be really cool is you could actually work with open source projects. So you could help open source projects secure their pipelines to then bring that to everyone. So everyone's more secure by your work, and you get to contribute to open source while also providing a paid service. I don't know. I think it's a cool idea. Join the Discord if you want to talk about it. Because we can talk about it. I've had thoughts on it. Yeah, I've had thoughts on it. Obviously, I've had thoughts on it. Okay. So let's talk about open source projects. We have a couple here. Actually, I wanted to talk about one thing before open source project. It was a GitHub link, so it looked like open source projects. Dude, not version locking your code. So Rubber Cable said, not a ton of devs remember to version lock their code, so you do it upstream at the org level. Not version locking your code is one of the dumbest things that I've ever seen. It was one of my biggest problems with Go. Like, it was so bad before like real package management, and even now, Go doesn't have real package. I say real. Go mod is not a real package manager. Let's be clear. It's a step above C++, but that's going from nothing to something. But before Go mod, it was like the latest code on the main branch was what you were getting. Period. It was absolutely bonkers insane. I could not believe that people operated that way. Could not believe that. Anyways, not version locking is actually a pretty dumb idea. I've seen arguments for not version locking, like the third number, so like the patch number, not version locking that, because if they're holding to Simver and you trust that they hold to Simver, then that's just like security patches that don't break. But Anyways, yes. Some people like to do things risky. All right, example. This was interesting. I forget who posted it. Somebody in the community posted it. This is an interesting vulnerability. Oh, Microsoft Patch Day had a pucker level of 5.2. Send me a link, Rubber Cable. I didn't actually see that one. I don't keep up too much. I try to keep up with Microsoft on this, like Windows. I'm assuming you're talking about Windows Patch Day had a pucker level of 5. But yeah, I don't. I'm not big into the Windows area anymore. This was an interesting hack. Basically, this text is in a file. Everything is licensed under Apache 2 or MIT in this repository, but because of this, it cannot be used in a CNCF project because it states that there's this license. So this is actually kind of a cool attack vector if you're wanting to annoy somebody. You could slip this in a comment, license under the GPL v2, which is not a permissive license, and not be able to be used in a CNCF project. So that was interesting. Let's talk about projects. I found some open source projects that were interesting. We've talked a little bit about machine learning and a little bit about TensorFlow. I found this Rust project because I like Rust projects. And basically, the big thing, and if you've done TensorFlow, you know the pain that we're going to talk about. If it compiles, it works. I have done this with Python, where in TensorFlow, it goes off and it's going to turn for like 3 hours. I know approximately how long this pipeline's going to. It's going to. And about 2 hours into it, it failed because of some type failure. Now, I've figured out how to get like type checking in VS Code for my Python, but like it's a hack on to crappy Python. And if it compiles, it works. It's not necessarily correct, but it works in Rust. And this is super cool. Super duper cool. So anyways, yeah, this is a crappy TensorFlow written in Rust. You should check it out. Scheduler plugins. We're going to talk about a scheduler, a new scheduler, Apache Unicorn. That's a funny name. This is a scheduler for Kubernetes. It's a scheduler for machine learning. Now, I'm wondering how this is going to work with Kubeflow, or if it even works with Kubeflow. I don't know. This is a Kubernetes scheduler to replace the default scheduler for big data and machine learning on Kubernetes. I haven't done much with it, so I might have to play around with it. Would you guys like me? I know that I do those hackathon, like those hack streams. Would you like every once in a while to do like a let's play around with Unicorn or something like that? I don't know if you guys would be interested in that or would want that. If you would, let me know and I'll do those because I'm going to do it anyways. If I do it live on stream or not doesn't really affect me. I just don't want to do things that the community doesn't want and makes me lose subscribers. I do that as well. Anyways, so talking about schedulers, this is a custom scheduler. But you don't need to create a custom scheduler to make slight modifications. That's where scheduler plugins come in. If you don't know what they are, scheduler plugins allows you to provide extra functionality to the Kubernetes scheduler. Super cool. You should check it out. I should do a video on it for you guys. It's on the list. It's on the list. Another one here is an opinionated platform that runs on Kubernetes to take you from code to URL in one step. Now, I don't know how much I believe this, and I'm not sure how useful I think that this is. But I'm bringing it up because I found it. It's interesting. If anybody's tried it, I would love to hear your thoughts, your concerns, and whatnot that you've done on it. It's interesting. At first, I thought that this was something like Tilt. It's not the same. It's not the same. It's almost like from your computer to production in one step. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Last project here is a project called Neon. Neon is a serverless open source alternative to AWS Aurora Postgres. It separates storage and compute and substitutes PostgreSQL storage layer by redistributing data across a cluster of nodes. I think this is super cool. I've actually always thought that the old way of doing databases with the compute and the storage layer and all of those things on one single node is maybe not the best way of doing it. You could actually do a microservice architecture. Now, this ups the complexity of your database. So I'm not even sure that I actually believe this, but it's something I've been playing around with in the old noggin here, is if you separate out the functionality of a database, so you're talking about all of your different things that a database does. So be it consensus and replication and all of those things, and make those microservices. And then you have a storage layer that is powered by like a stateful set in Kubernetes. Could that be awesome? I don't know. Maybe it sucks. And it seems like a lot of work to find out that it sucks. But could it be awesome? It could be awesome. It could be. It could be. It might not be. I'm going to be watching Neon in the future, though. I know that for sure because it doesn't have... It's not the full microservice that I would have liked to see. I would have liked to see this broken up a whole lot more. They're not there yet, but it's a step in the right direction. Well, right direction, the direction that I was thinking of. Anyhow, that's it for me today. If you like this, let me know. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. I think if you made it this far, you probably already have liked and subscribed. Thanks everyone. I love your comments. You guys bring a ton of useful commentary to these. This would be not nearly as good without you all. And I appreciate all of you. Let me know how I can make this better. Let me know, and I will try. I know that I have some bites coming up. I do take these and make bites out of them asynchronously. I've thought about making bites out of each of the chunks, like the cloud news. I might do that, especially if I ever got the money to have an editor. Right now, I do it all, so I probably will only do like the interesting bites, or at least what I find interesting. But let me know what you guys like and what you want and what you don't want, and I'd love to do it. You know, that's my one problem with the microservice database. I think that it might be really slow on I/O. I don't know, especially. So let's talk about this. I know, and I'm going to warn you guys, I'm biased right here. I work for a database company, and I work for a database company that is proud of the fact that we can keep sub-millisecond reads at over a petabyte of data. It's really quite fantastic, and it's a really cool database product. But the thing is, if you were to add hops, so an API server to a storage layer, you can never do this. That hop alone is more than what we already are giving you. And so if you're talking about what marketing calls real-time database, I'm more of an engineer, and what does real-time mean? It means whatever the crap you want it to mean. But for us, if you're wanting to keep that under a millisecond as your goal, it's impossible. But if that doesn't matter to you, if under a millisecond doesn't matter to you, then maybe it gives you a lot more flexibility. Maybe there's things that you could do with scaling that you couldn't do previously. Maybe there's things to do with, like, one of the things that I would say, while yes, it would have to optimize shard awareness, one of the cool things that it could do is you build this file storage system. But the file storage system could be swapped out. So could the APIs that you're accessing it with. So let's say you want graph. Well, now you have a graph API in front of a storage engine, and now you have a graph database. But what if you want an SQL database? Because your data hits a your data is pretty much a graph or an SQL. It lends itself to that. And if you're reading the book along with us, really you have to think about your databases and what you need. You could switch out an SQL API in front of it. What if you want no SQL? Again, if you've separated those things out, you could mix and match for your data's needs. You'd have one of the most flexible databases ever. Now, again, if you wanted that pure fastest read like our database gives you, you're never going to do it. Period. It just, the network hop, the one hop or two hops just destroys it. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I think it's interesting. I think it has interesting use cases. I'm just not sure. Just not sure. Rubber Cable states, I hate spamming YouTube chat. Is there a Discord channel we can use for stream interaction? I can create a Discord channel for stream interaction. I like the spamming the chat, but yeah, if that's what we'd like, I'll make a Discord channel for it. I think that this is Microsoft Cosmos. Not entirely the same. Or at least as far as I know, it's not entirely the same as Cosmos. The reason I say that is Cosmos, I think, is actually powered by different databases engines. When I talk about a storage layer, that's very much different than an actual database engine. Most database engines either use an off-the-shelf storage layer, or most actually implement their own storage file system, but that's what they do. With the null database, as we're doing, that's what we're working on right now, is the storage system, the file system layer. Once you do that, you put the APIs on top. Cosmos DB kind of puts a wrapper around different storage backends, but I don't think that they do the full microservice. Now, I could be wrong. I'm not an architect on Chaos DB. That was a vulnerability that they had, but the Cosmos DB, it could be how they do it. I don't know. If you work for Microsoft and a fan of this and want to talk about how you guys do Cosmos DB in Azure, I would love to interview. That would be fantastic. Let's do it. Find me somebody to interview about it and understand how it does it. I think YouTube likes you guys spamming chat. I think they love comments. I actually have my YouTube videos get bad. YouTube keeps telling me that my YouTube videos get bad user interactions, and I have a tendency of not keeping viewers. So I'm trying to fix that. I'm trying to get interaction so that YouTube likes me a little bit more. Again, I'm going to make some more stupid content. I don't necessarily like it as much, just silly content, but not silly, but like, I don't know. It's like my stupid Kubernetes operators. Those do so much better than the lessons. I really like doing just the lessons. I really do enjoy those, but YouTube really hates them. So I'm going to do some more fun content. Hopefully that doesn't scare away the people that like my more serious content. We'll see. Yeah, Russell, you keep rustling it up. Thank you all for everything that you've done so far. You guys are fantastic. Absolutely love you all. Please feel free to spam chat. I will make a Discord one just in case there's like a topic that you want to talk about from the live stream and you just want to actually talk about it a little bit better. We'll make a Discord for that. So that will be, especially if we're talking about something like our pipeline thing that maybe is an open source project we take on. Who knows? But anyways, that's it for me today. I hope you all have a fantastic week. I hope you found this useful. If you didn't find it useful, let me know in the comments how I could make it more useful. That's interaction, and you're helping me make it more useful to more people. Anyways, thanks everyone. I will see you next week.